As we have gone through all the key concepts related to user-defined functions, let us recap them. We have seen how to define the functions with parameters. It starts with the def keyword and then function name and then the parameters in circular brackets. You can optionally specify the data types for the parameters. However, it is just informational. As Python variables are dynamically typed, Python will not enforce the type on the parameters even if you specify the types for the parameters. We have seen the relevance of docstrings. After the function spec, as part of the first line, we typically have a string and that will act as a docstring. When we run help function on top of the functions which we have created, it will actually display the information that is passed as part of the docstring. We have gone through the details about returning one or more values in Python functions. We have seen that we can specify default values to the parameters. If the argument is not passed when the function is invoked, the default value set to the parameter will be used as part of the function body. We have seen that arguments can be passed by position where the order matters, or arguments can be passed by name. Passing arguments by name is also called as keyword arguments. There are different types of special arguments and we have seen how they are passed. Varying arguments are passed as tuple and varying keyword arguments are passed as dict. If you have enough knowledge with respect to processing tuples and dicts, you should be able to leverage that and you can process the varying arguments or varying keyword arguments that are passed to the function, leveraging those tuple or dict operations. I'll be going through defining a function called as add employee where all the concepts that are relevant to user-defined functions are covered. However, if you could not understand some of the concepts, come back to this once you are done with collections where processing tuples, lists, dicts are extensively covered. For now, I will just walk you through the requirements and I will walk you through the solution just to go through it and see if you are able to understand as much information as possible. So the function add employee will take multiple arguments and hence we have to create the function with several parameters. The parameters are nothing but employee ID, employee name, salary, phone numbers and degrees. Phone numbers will be variable number arguments and hence we have to put star before that. Degrees will be variable keyword arguments when it is passed and hence we have to put double asterisk or double star before degrees. We should be able to pass multiple phone numbers as arguments for phone numbers. That's why we are calling it as variable number here and hence we have to put star before it. For degrees, as we'll be having specialization with keys bachelor's, master's, executive, doctorate, etc. It is nothing but a variable keyword arguments when we invoke the function and hence we have to put star star before the degrees. Make sure salary is defaulted to 3000. If salary is passed and if it is less than 3000, print a message saying that invalid salary should be at least 3000. To get invalid phone count, create a function get invalid phone count which takes employee ID and varying phone numbers as argument. The function should return employee ID and invalid phone count. And here is the rule for determining whether the phone number is valid or not. If a phone number have 10 digits or characters, it is valid, otherwise it is invalid. Call get invalid phone count as part of add employee function. Check if invalid phone count is greater than 0. If invalid phone count is greater than 0, print a message saying that so many phone numbers out of total phone numbers are not valid. Also get count of degrees by processing variable keyword argument which is nothing but degrees. If there are any invalid degrees, print one or more degrees are not valid. We are not going to get the count, we will just print even if 1 degree is invalid or n number of degrees are invalid, saying one or more degrees are not valid. If all the values passed as arguments are valid, print employee with employee ID with the number of degrees is successfully added and his salary is whatever salary that is passed as argument. Here is the function for get invalid phone count. You can see that it is accepting two arguments, employee ID and phone numbers. Phone numbers will be of type variable number of arguments and hence while defining the function, the parameter is added using star in front of it. Then I am initializing a global variable called as the invalid count as part of this function. Then I am iterating through the phone numbers tuple. So phone numbers is of type tuple here. I am iterating through it and processing one phone number at a time. If the phone number length is less than 10, ideally it should be not equal to, not less than. So if the length of phone number is not equal to 10, then invalid count will be incremented. After processing all the phone numbers, it will return employee ID and invalid count. Let me create this function. Now if you look at add employee function, it takes employee ID, employee name, phone numbers, which is of type varying arguments, salary with default 3000 and degrees which will be of type varying keyword arguments when this function is called. That's why we have star before phone numbers and star before degrees. Now I want to check whether the degree types are valid or not. In this case we have to check against the keys. The keys that will be passed as part of the keyword arguments has to be these ones. If they are not these ones, then they are not invalid degree types or invalid degrees. I'm setting a global variable called as invalid degree flag and invalid salary flag. You will see why we are setting these things here at a later point in time. I'm invoking get invalid phone count by passing employee ID and phone numbers that is passed as arguments to this function. It will return the employee ID and invalid count. If all the phone numbers are valid, it will be 0. If not, it will be greater than 0. So here we are saying if invalid count is not equal to 0, print this message. So many phone numbers out of total phone numbers are not valid. If salary is less than 3000, then I'm setting invalid salary flag to true, and I'm printing message saying that invalid salary should be at least 3000. When it comes to degrees, it will be coming in as dict to this function when we pass variable keyword arguments while invoking this add employee function. Degree key in degrees will return all the keys, and I'm validating the degree keys such as B and masters in this case, bachelors and masters in this case, against these values. If they are not in, then I am setting invalid degree flag to true. The reason why I am not printing the message here is if we have more than one invalid degree, the message will be repeated twice by saying one or more degrees are not valid. I don't want to do that, and hence I am just setting the flag to true. Then I am checking if invalid count not equal to 0 or invalid degree flag is true or invalid salary flag is true. In that, if invalid degree flag is true, I am printing this message so that the message will not repeated multiple times by placing this message here. That's why I have the message here, and then I am returning without going to this print message. If everything is valid, finally it will print message saying that employee ID with the degrees is successfully added and his salary is whatever salary is passed. And finally we can have a return statement to make it complete like this. We are not returning anything here, that's why I'm just saying return. Even if you do not have written here, it will be returning none. Let's create the function and let us validate with this. In this case, the salary is correct, the phone numbers are correct. However, when it comes to degrees, the degree types are B and masters, which are not in the degrees which we are looking for, which are nothing but bachelor's, master's, executive, doctorate, etc. And hence it is saying one or more degrees are not valid. Even if I say M here, even if we have two keywords which are not right, still it will only print the message once because we are not printing the message as part of the for loop, but we are printing message as part of this if condition after processing all the elements in the degrees dict. Now if you run this one, you can see that it is saying one phone numbers out of two are not valid because this phone number doesn't have 10 digits, and also it is saying one or more degrees are not valid. So we are printing both the messages here and we are returning if they are invalid. In this case, I have set even salary to be an invalid value. You can see that it is saying one phone numbers out of two are not valid, and invalid salary 2000, salary should be at least 3000. However, when it comes to degrees, the keys are correct, that's why it is not showing any message related to degrees. Now I am invoking this function with all valid values, and you can see that the message is saying employee 1 with 2 degrees is successfully added and his salary is 5000 because the salary is 5000 here. So this is how you should be able to develop the function. Typically we will not be printing messages like this. Either we will be handling exceptions or we will be saving into the database if everything is correct, so and so forth. But for now, just to understand the nuances related to the user defined functions, we are using simple print statements, but in actual projects it will be saving it into a database or raising the exceptions if criteria is not met. So this is how a program with exceptions will look like. I'm still printing here instead of saving into a database if everything is valid. This statement can be removed, replaced with add employee, and that add employee function might have functionality to add into a database. So when I say add employee, or we can say add employee to DB, and as part of that add employee to DB function, we will be having the logic to save the record into the database and commit. However, we are just printing, we can replace this with that function once it is defined. This is how we typically implement as part of the actual applications. You can run this with simple exception handling without saving any information into the database, and still it will work as expected. I consolidated all the messages related to invalid at one place rather than printing multiple messages. That's why you are seeing only one message for everything. And if everything is right, it is just saying employee 1 with 2 degrees is successfully added and his salary is 5000. In actual projects, in place of this print statement, we'll have add employee to DB and we'll have the functionality to add the record into the database.